טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה 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 טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Well, officially welcome to those on Zoom, welcome to those here in our sanctuary. How it has just been one of those weeks where literally until standing on this bima right now, being here for Shabbat, it has not felt like there would ever be a breath or rest. So I appreciate these moments where it is just that calm and gentle Shabbat, just an opportunity to let the week, to us feel our week wind down, a time to quiet our bodies and minds, offering ourselves a chance to reflect, to just be present and be here. Whatever achievements or disappointments will soon fade into memory as new challenges and new fears and new hopes will come again. But that is how we live our Jewish time, from week to week, making sure that we never let anything linger for too long, nor do we let anything, we don't celebrate for too long, we don't hold on to pain or loss for too long, we let it sit, we let it turn, we let the seasons guide us. And now we are in a very special time in our holiday calendar, just before this anticipation of Pesach. We're getting ready. We're cleaning out what no longer is serving us as this moment so we can feel that freedom come to us again. So let this time in our lives be a sacred renewal, marking the end of something as the beginning of something else. And Shira, you really are marking that end of something, that end of your childhood and the beginning of this new stage in your life. It has been such a blessing to see you grow up here. I really can't believe it's your bat mitzvah. And in honor of you, we invite you and your mom, Relly, and your sister, Maya, and Yosefa Heller and Malka Lippman to join us to light Shabbat candles. We're on page 2 and 3.
As these candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lip, give light to all those who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Lift up the whole. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu adlik ner shal Shabbat. Amen. We'll see you at the end of services. Thank you, everyone. We are going to continue to welcome Shabbat on page 20 with the words of Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor beribor echad hishmianu el hamayuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shemo tiferet ve'eli tkila lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor habracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tefila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 5.
Hitoreri ki va'oreh kumi uri shir daveri kivod Adonai alayk mila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We invite you to rise if you are able and turn to our entrance to greet Shabbat into our presence.
Boi v'shalom ater bala gam b'simcha u'vetzohola toch emunei ham segula boi kala lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala Shabbat, Pnei Shabbat Nekabala. Pnei Shabbat, Pnei Shabbat
Nekabala. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nivarach, let us bless with the words of Baruch Hu, page 28.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Yalalai, lai, lai. 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 Yalalai, lai, lai.
As we sing that call to prayer, we imagine all Jews around the world celebrating Shabbat, coming together and proclaiming the words of Shema in unison. We sing on page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed.
You may be seated. We're on page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvletecha v'derech uvshotbecha uvkumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם emet. So tonight we are welcoming again our confirmation families here into our sanctuary. We've started this tradition of having a monthly Shabbat dinner. And this past week in confirmation, we did this exercise called the 6 Word Memoir, where you try to tell your story or a story using only 6 words. And we started with trying to tell the story of Passover. And I don't remember who exactly came up with this one, so I want to give the right credit. It was a confirmation student. But you described, once we were slaves, now free. And in 6 words, we have the entire story of not just the holiday of Passover, but the Jewish people. Avadim chayinu. Once we were slaves, now free. We always have something that makes us feel constricted, as if we're in Mitzrayim, something that weighs us down or holds us back or sets us back. But that longing for freedom, that longing to take that step forward, to start a journey away from what brings us back, is the story of all of us. So I marvel at stories of freedom that we are witnessing right now. I am marveling at the resolve of the Ukrainian people who are fighting for freedom as we celebrate our story of freedom. And I hold that as we pray tonight, the prayer of Michamocha, and we celebrate at our Seders coming soon, this longing will be true for us all. Michamocha is on page 40.
Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nedar b'kodesh, Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nedar b'kodesh, Norah tehilot, oseh felem, Norah tehilot, oseh felem, Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nedar b'kodesh, Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nedar b'kodesh.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai haporeh sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We pray Hashkivenu on page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Ve'hamidenu
Shomreinu
l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, our wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
Amen. We continue on page 46 and we rise to recite the Amidah, beginning by asking to find that intention. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may praise your name. Yadadai-dai-dai, 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 yadadai-dai-dai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol atah, Rav leHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach uMorid HaGashem, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofech holim, umatzir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha bal gevurot, umido melach, melech memit umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lachayot hakol, baruch ata Adonai, mechaye hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, v'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah, baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We take a moment during this prayer to also find that time for silence, for peace and quiet, or the prayers of the Siddur, or personal prayers. When you feel ready, you may be seated.
Dear God of our ancestors, help us renew our faith. Grant us a perfect healing. Bring peace to all our days. Refine Allah new. Refine Allah new. Restore strength of body. Help clarify our minds. Refresh our tired spirits. Rejuvenate our light. Refine Allah new. Refine Allah new.
This week's Torah portion is all about dealing with someone who falls ill with the Mitzorah. And what this Torah portion reminds us is that it could be anyone at any time that falls stricken with illness. We don't know why or when or how it will come, but we know that part of the job of the community is to make sure that that person is cared for. We know that the community, the Israelites, will not keep going with their camp until that Metzora is restored and returned to the community. And from that, we are reminded to care for one another, to acknowledge those who are ill, to not be ashamed, to not push someone away, but to say, we're here, we care about you. And I know so many of you come to Shabbat services and come online to pray for those who are healing, to be acknowledged that you are in need of healing or that someone you love is in need of healing. So I invite you at this time, if you're in our synagogue, to rise and be recognized, and we can pray with you, we can pray together. And if you're on Zoom, to please add those names to our chat box, so again, we can be with you virtually and see you and see your prayers. So we always have a list of our community that we pray for. Tonight, unfortunately, we have 2 yard site lists and no Misha Bayrak list. So I'm going to ask you, for those regulars that hear those names over and over again from our community, to think of them, but more so reach out to them if you know them. We wish a refuah shlema.
Elna Rifana la nu Elna Rifana la nu Elna Rifana la nu.
Shabbat shalom. Hard-boiled egg, check. Greens, check. Charosets, maror, shankbone, check, check, check. You know that we are completing our traditional Seder Plate, the item that sits in the middle of our table that represents the themes of Passover. And if those items stressed you out when I named them, it means it is time to go shopping. You have less than a week to prepare. No stress, you'll get it done. Instacart. The Seder Plate plays a special role during our Seder to show off the representations of our Pesach story through food. The bitterness of slavery, the hope of spring, the sacrifices of the ancient temple. But in a tradition that is ripe with interpretation and one that adapts for modern times, there have been many substitutions and additions that reflect contemporary issues or values. Some that I've recently learned of include fair trade chocolate for economic liberation, an olive for Middle Eastern peace, beet juice for a vegan interpretation of a shank bone. But perhaps most important and infamous is the inclusion of an orange. But what does that orange really symbolize? How did it come to be? And how come so many people have the story wrong? Susanna Heschel, a feminist scholar, professor, and daughter of the notable Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, is rightly credited for introducing the idea of an orange on a Seder plate. And even she is amazed about how this legend took on a life of its own. In a recent interview on the podcast Can We Talk from the Jewish Women's Archive, Heschel recalls the setting of how this idea first appeared. It was the mid-1980s, and AIDS was spreading rapidly, particularly in the gay male community, without being named or mentioned. Around the same time, Heschel visited a group of lesbian students at Oberlin College who had written their own Haggadah. In this Haggadah was the story the group of women wrote about an imagined feminista Rebbe who sits among her disciples and asks about a crust of bread that appears on a Seder plate. This imagined Rebbe then tells the story of another Seder from even longer ago. And at that Seder, a young girl asks her more traditional rabbi, "Rabbi, what room is there for a lesbian in Judaism?" This old rabbi immediately turns angry and shouts with his fists pounding, yelling back to the girl, "There is as much room for a lesbian in Judaism as there is for a crust of bread on the Seder plate." And so the feminista rabbi said, "We will now add a crust of bread to our Seder plate in defiance of this old rabbi, making room for us." But mind you, this is a story within a story within a story. There was no crust of bread on a Seder plate. That would be even too treif for a group of radical lesbians. There was no old feminista Rebbe. There was just a group of young Jews who desperately wanted to be seen by their tradition and created an origin story of sorts to sanctify transgressive opposition as an inspiration for inclusion. And this story is not the first instance of exclusion in Judaism, nor is it the first tale of those longing to be seen for their differences. This week's Torah portion, Mitzorah, continues with themes from last week, recounting the unseemly details of a strange skin disease, tzara'at. The most unfortunate consequence of the disease is that the afflicted one is alienated from the community until they are healed, welcomed back only after a purification ritual involving the high priest. While this precaution may be necessary to prevent the spread of a contagious disease, it undoubtedly left the Mitzorah feeling emotionally as well as physically alone. Students of Torah have been bothered by this parsha for millennia, not only because of the gory details in which the Sara'at is described, Shira can tell you more about those discharges, but also the alienation it imposes. Isn't one who is sick meant to be treated with empathy and compassion? Isn't one who is sick deserving of company and embrace from their community? When Susanna Heschel heard the tale of the feminista Rebbe, her allyship was inspired. She wanted to find a way to stand in solidarity with the LGBTQ plus community, although not called that at the time. She saw the pain of this lesbian community who were using their stories to dream of feeling seen and welcome in their faith. And she empathized with gay men who at this moment were experiencing widespread discrimination, who were literally mitzorim, sick and alone. While Jewish leaders were mostly silent about the AIDS epidemic, the newspapers were calling AIDS a gay plague, and evangelical religious leaders went as far to call the disease God's punishment. So that year, at her 1985 Seder, Susanna Heschel peeled open a mandarin orange at her table. She passed it around, and everyone took a segment and recited the blessing over fruit. They ate their orange slice and together spit out the seeds of homophobia in solidarity with the LGBTQ plus community. Heschel taught that night that one never peels an orange and finds that a segment is missing. And that's what it means to be a community. You don't set someone apart because they are gay or lesbian or sick or any other reason. We stick together as the segments do of an orange, completing a whole fruit as found in nature. And also, in this historical context at the time, were other feminist traditions popping up all over Judaism. Practices like Rosh Chodesh circles were forming. The Imahot, our foremothers, were added to our Amidah. Miriam plays a larger role in the Seder story, and female rabbis were being ordained. As a feminist scholar, Heschel was in tune with these innovations too, until she heard the following story. She, Heschel, was traveling to Miami Beach in her role as professor, teaching about Jewish feminism, when a man in her audience stood up and chastised her. "A woman belongs on the bima like an orange belongs on the Seder plate," he yelled at her. But Heschel affirms this never happened. It was totally a rumor, a made-up story, and yet as she traveled and taught in different communities, the story kept spreading. Women would come up to her and tell her, "I'm putting an orange on my Seder plate this year because of what that man said to you." And to this day, she doesn't know the source of the story. And many Jewish feminists, I'm sure so many of us included, we have that orange brightly shining on our Seder plate that reflects the inclusion of women in all walks of Jewish life, from the pews to leadership to the bima. I'm sure if I had asked any one of you before this service the meaning of the orange, most of you would have agreed it represented inclusion of women. Susanna Heschel wants to let you know she's angry at what happened to her orange. One, it was an idea that she had, yet was put into the mouth of a man in her story. And two, it erased the homophobia that was at the center of her fight. She believes that the discomfort of acknowledging homophobia wasn't as easy as the fight for feminism. Even though Heschel herself was rejected by the Jewish Theological Seminary's rabbinical school in 1972, they had not yet started accepting female students. By the time of this story in the mid-'80s, women were serving as Reform rabbis, even if it wasn't the norm. And still, the fight for female equality in Judaism seemed like an easier cause to get behind, rather than speak out and fight for the lives of those in the queer community, those dying of AIDS, those who were truly left without an embrace from their religion. This week was the first time I learned of this true story, and I wanted to shed light of its truth. Because washing over the true origin of this symbol has been painful for some, even while it's been inspiring for others. It's okay that Jewish rituals evolve and take on meanings of their own. If you are in the queer community, or a woman, or a Jew of color, or you care about Ukrainian refugees, or the fight against COVID, or so many other social justice issues, there may be new symbols that you add to your Seder Plate this year. And that's a good thing, because our communities will always include individuals who for some reason or another feel isolated. These symbols remind us that we cannot contribute to feelings of estrangement for any. And they remind us not just to be a symbol, but to fight and act and speak out and create a community of belonging for all. I am still drawn to the image of an orange as a sign of belonging. It's about those slices that are stuck together in community, whether we want to be or not. We are in relationships with our neighbors, whether we're similar to them or not. We all have seeds of hatred to spit out and seeds of hope to plant and grow. A final thought from our Torah. When Miriam falls ill with Sara'at, the striking element is that the entire Israelite community waits for her. They do not leave her behind. They do not forget her. They grant her time, patience, and love to heal and to be returned to them. They never stop seeing her in the fullness of her humanity. May we do the same for all. Shabbat Shalom. Roger, I understand our temple president is here tonight to give our announcements. Thank you for being here.
And Yasher Koach. And Shabbat Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome Lori, a brand new member to PTBE. Let's all stare at Lori and make her uncomfortable in true PTBE fashion. No, leave her alone. But say hello after the service. All right, so what have we got going on? The PTE book club was last night, so I don't have to talk about that. Had I known Percini was going to be there, I would have read the book and been there myself. World's best dog. So what's actually coming up? There's a Yizkor service coming up on April 22nd. For those who don't know, there are 4 times a year when we have memorial services: Yom Kippur, Shmini Atzeret, and Shavuot, and of course, the last day of Passover. So that'll be Zoom only at 8:30 on April 22nd. The Peninsula Interfaith Passover, I'm not sure that's grammatically correct. There's a Peninsula Interfaith Passover and Ramadan celebration on the 24th from 6:30 to 9 p.m. here. There's more details on that in your in the email. And the Torah Project. We're going to talk about the Torah Project again. If you haven't had a chance to sign up and fill in a letter, it's an amazing experience. We have one last session coming in May. It's May 9th, 10th, and 11th. So. It's what's the command? The last commandment is number 613. The very last commandment is to write Torah, and this is your chance, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I have talked to people who don't particularly have interest in that, that's fine. We'll meet you where you're at. But the other part of this is the Torahs, safely tucked away in the ark there, are old. Some of them are over 100 years old. So we are trying to raise money in addition to do some maintenance and restoration on those. If you can help with that, we really want to build up a fund to take care of those as well. And I also want to welcome Gina Kaplan. She just joined the PTBE staff as our new administrative assistant to our executive director, Kate. And so she just started. She's awesome. So if you see her or get an email from her, just please take a moment to welcome her. And last but not least, Shira. Tomorrow. Mazel tov. I'm sitting there, I can't, we're there already. We're there, it's that time now already. So, these kids these days, they grow so fast. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Thanks again for being here. So I know so many of you come here to Shabbat to mourn, to remember those who you have loved and lost. And in addition to those in our community who we are remembering, in addition to those who are dying in the fight for freedom in Ukraine, we are also remembering Eitan Magini, 27 years old, Tomer Morad, 28 years old, Barak Lopen, 35 years old, a father of 3, and a former Olympian who represented Israel at the 2008 Beijing and 2012 London Olympics. 15 Israelis have been killed in the last 3 weeks, and we stand proudly with people of Israel as they confront this wave of terrorism, and we mourn their losses alongside. If you are remembering someone here tonight, if it is a recent loss, or if you are here to observe a yard site, I invite you to be rise and recognized by our community. Thanks. We are remembering Alexander Wick, Joe Marie Nixon, and Buddy Feigelson. This is the yard site of Harriet Bernstein, Teresa Block, Luann Brenman, Sanford Breyer, Ben Feinstein, Barbara Fishbane, Ernest Fisher, Stanley Fisher, Al Friedman, Louis Goldstein, Sarah Gordon, Anita Harris, Paul Heyman, Helen Iweil, Willis Johnson, Mary Kaddish, Ann Kaplan, Arthur Lempert, Alexander Libby, Mary Lipson, Gerald Lustig, Lester Majofis, Ben Margolis, Paul Meadow, Henry Newman, Catherine Plager, Rabbi Rayskin, Celia Resnick, Imre Sandor, Sarah Sondrovich, Dora Simmons, Herbert Winchell, and Merton Eulis. If I left off a name or if I mispronounced a name, I invite you to say it out loud. In addition, those of you who are here on Zoom are adding names to our chat box. We rise together as, Rob. Oh. We rise together in community, page 294. Yitzgadal v'yitzkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'amad zivrach yirteh ve'amlich malchuteh, b'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayed chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam al mei al maya, yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitzaleh v'yithalal shemed kedusha b'richu, le'ela minko berchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, damiran be'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yakosh v'tevel v'imru amen. Zikronam livracha, may their memory be for a blessing. We remain standing and we turn back to those moments of sweetness and celebration that Shabbat also brings. We're going to invite Shira to the bima to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi, and we're going to be on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא דקודש, זכר ליציאה מצרים, כי באנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל עולמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. Chaim. Yeah. Here's some. Should I say? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Noam. Mazel tov Shira and to the whole Siegel family. We are so excited, not just to celebrate you, but actually tomorrow morning is a service that you really designed for yourself, and I'm so excited to see what you've come up with. Thank you all for being here for Shabbat. Thank you, Shwa, for leading with me, and Max on tech, Kate for everything, Mick, everyone on staff. We really appreciate it, and of course, you all. Shabbat Shalom. We'll end with a song for peace.
Oh, say shalom. Bim Roma. Oh, say shalom. Bim Roma. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu. Count it 1, 2, 3, 4. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down.
Shabbat Shalom. Please stay and have some oneg with us after services. Yasher koach.
That was a tough missing song.
Missing song, not as bad as missing. I literally have 2